man who created Sherlock Holmes, the most ruthlessly logical character in history, destroyed his own reputation in the 1920s over a photograph of fake paper fairies. We assume a high IQ makes someone a truth seeker. But think about the last time you argued with someone highly educated. You present a piece of bulletproof evidence that completely dismantles their position. You wait for them to say, "You know what? I was wrong." But they don't. Instead, they spin a flawless, complex counter-argument out of thin air, and they leave the debate feeling even more convinced they are right. How can someone so smart be so entirely blind to reality? Because neurologically, we have it backwards. Being highly intelligent doesn't make you more open-minded. It just makes you a much better lawyer for your own biases. When photographic experts pointed out the fairies were a crude hoax, Conan Doyle abandoned the mind of a scientist and acted like a lawyer. Many biographers point out that while his interest in the supernatural was older, his belief was fully weaponized by the profound soul-crushing loss of his son to the devastation of World War I. The man of science broke down. He was desperately searching for any scrap of hope that his son wasn't truly gone forever. He used his genius to build an intricate, heavily fortified castle to protect that single, fragile hope. He wrote an entire book defending the fairies, using highly complex, articulate arguments about electromagnetic spectrums and the psychic properties of children. His genius didn't protect him from a delusion. It just gave him the vocabulary to build an impenetrable fortress around it. And the terrifying truth is that Doyle's reaction is entirely universal. He was simply demonstrating a fundamental law of human psychology. Psychologist Jonathan Haidt describes this using the metaphor of an elephant and a rider. Imagine a tiny rider sitting on top of a massive elephant. The rider represents our conscious, logical intellect. The elephant represents our primal, emotional brain. The rider thinks he is driving the elephant, but whenever the elephant gets spooked, it goes exactly where it wants. The rider's only job is to act as the lawyer for the elephant, quickly making up a logical-sounding excuse to defend wherever the elephant decides to go. The smarter the rider, the more convincing the argument. But the elephant is always the one in charge. In a study, neuroscientists put highly intelligent, politically engaged people into an fMRI brain scanner. They showed these people clear, undeniable evidence that their favorite politician was lying or contradicting themselves. The researchers watched what happened to the brain in real time. The logical, reasoning centers of the brain literally shut down. Instead, the emotional centers lit up like a Christmas tree. The brain aggressively ignored the facts, went to war to protect its belief, and when it successfully rationalized the politician's lie, it released a massive dose of dopamine. Their high IQ didn't help them see the truth. It just gave them the computational power to successfully trick themselves. Why are the smartest people often the most stubborn? Because we fundamentally misunderstand what the human brain is designed to do. We like to flatter ourselves by thinking our minds operate like a scientist. A scientist observes the world, gathers cold, hard data, and then, based on that data, slowly forms a conclusion. But biology operates in reverse. Our brains did not evolve to be scientists. They evolved to be rapid pattern recognition machines. In the ancient world, if you heard a rustle in the grass, it was safer to assume it was a dangerous predator than the wind. Our ancestors survived because they were incredibly fast at connecting dots and finding meaning in chaos. Those meaningful patterns eventually harden into what we call beliefs. And this creates a terrifying psychological loop. We don't see the world as it is and then form a belief. We form a belief, and that belief literally dictates what we are capable of seeing. And the brain chemically rewards us for maintaining that blindness. That massive hit of dopamine is the key. The lawyer isn't defending facts. The lawyer is defending our deepest, most primal emotional needs. In the 1950s, psychologist Leon Festinger infiltrated a UFO doomsday cult. The members had sacrificed everything, quitting their jobs and giving away their life savings, because they believed an alien spaceship was coming to rescue them from an apocalyptic flood. They even ripped the metal zippers out of their clothing, terrified it would interfere with the ship's tractor beam. But the spaceship never arrived. As the sun rose the next morning, illuminating the undeniable fact that they had thrown their entire lives away for a delusion, you would expect them to say, "Wow, we were wrong. Let's go home." Instead, they doubled down. By early morning, the smartest members of the cult spun a flawless, complex rationalization. Because the cult had sat together and prayed so hard, the aliens had decided to spare the Earth. They were acting out Jonathan Haidt's metaphor perfectly. They were highly intelligent riders making desperate excuses for panicked elephants. Just like Conan Doyle building a fortress around his fairies, the cult's massive intellect simply sought a shield against the agonizing pain of reality. When faced with the terrifying reality that they had quit their jobs and given away their money for nothing, their brains panicked. The emotional need to preserve their reality and their tribe completely overrode the objective facts. You don't need to join a doomsday cult to experience this. We all do it every day. This is the ultimate trap of the human ego. We look at everyone else and see terrified animals huddling together for comfort. But when we look in the mirror, we hallucinate a perfectly rational philosopher. Every human being has a deep desire for social harmony and tribal belonging. We adopt the beliefs of our pack simply to survive. Once people commit to a belief, the smarter they are, the better they are at rationalizing it. Smart people believe absurd things because they are highly skilled at defending beliefs they arrived at for entirely irrational reasons. When you argue with a genius, you are fighting their emotional need for comfort. They are just using their massive intellect as a shield. So if our brains are biologically wired to deceive us, and if intelligence is just a weapon we use to defend our egos, how do we protect ourselves from our own minds? Charles Darwin understood this perfectly. He had a theory he had every emotional reason to protect. Decades of work and his entire scientific reputation were on the line. But he knew something fundamental about his own biology, and he responded to it, not heroically, but procedurally. In his autobiography, Darwin described a strict personal rule. Whenever he encountered a published fact, a new observation, or a thought that contradicted his theory, he forced himself to write it down immediately. Why? Because he had noticed, through painful experience, that hostile facts were far more apt to escape his memory than favorable ones. He wasn't claiming to be immune to bias. He was admitting that his own memory was rigged, and he was building a paper system to compensate for it. Long before modern neuroscience, he had identified the behavioral shadow of the exact mechanism those researchers saw in the brain scanner. He knew his brain would reward itself for ignoring inconvenient truths, so he took the wheel away from his inner lawyer and handed it to a notebook. He made the absolute best case for the prosecution, in his own book, in his own voice. And then he answered it. This is the exact inverse of Arthur Conan Doyle. Doyle was a brilliant man with an unbearable emotional need, who deployed his intellect to build an impenetrable fortress around his belief. Darwin was a brilliant man who deployed his intellect to build a cage around his own elephant. It was genius pointed in the opposite direction. Genius as self-surveillance. Think about the belief you hold most dearly, the one you are proudest of, the one you think proves you are a good, rational person. Now ask yourself, if someone proved it was entirely wrong tomorrow, would you unleash your inner lawyer to destroy them? Or would you thank them? Putting that shield down feels terrifying. But firing your inner lawyer isn't a defeat. It is a massive relief. The burden of defending your ego is replaced by the privilege of discovery. We don't have to be perfect, rational philosophers. We just have to open the notebook and admit when we're wrong. True humility isn't found in blind certainty. It is found in embracing just how incredibly small we truly are.
Consider again that dot. That's here. That's home. That's us. On it, everyone you love, everyone you know, everyone you ever heard of, every human being who ever was, lived out their lives. The earth is a very small stage in a vast cosmic arena. To me, it underscores our responsibility to deal more kindly with one another and to preserve and cherish the pale blue dot, the only home we've ever known.